Hey there, good morning. This is Sheryl, mental toughness coach, published author, speaker, and mother of a couple of great kids who are high school and now college student athletes. Thank you so much if you are joining on Facebook Live this morning. If you're part of my mailing list, this is really going to be a bit of a review for my last newsletter, which went over a few tips for teens and how they can nail their upcoming tryouts. I've been asked a couple questions. One includes, is this talk just for girls? Because I know volleyball is coming up this weekend, and no, it's not just for girls. I know boys have basketball coming up, and there's a lot of things going on for them too. So this is for boys and girls, and of course parents of boys and girls. I'm going to go over these tips for teens, and then I'm also going to give a couple insights on how parents can best help their teens to be mentally tough and really perform their best when it comes to tryouts. So the first thing we're going to talk about is sleep. And before I get into that, I want to offer a couple of reminders. Please go ahead and ask questions as this is streaming, because I will answer specific questions, and I really encourage you to do that. So as I mentioned, the first thing we're going to talk about is sleep. And I know, and I've heard it a lot before, is that it's very important with your teen to pick their battles or pick your battles with them. But in this case, I think that this battle is one that's very worth picking, because if teens don't get typically a minimum of 8 hours of sleep, they're going to be compromised, and it's going to be very difficult for them to perform their best, especially in high pressure situations like tryouts. Now, there's a couple things to keep in mind when it comes to sleep. Teens know themselves best, so 8 hours is kind of the golden standards, but maybe they need a little bit more. But they need a significant amount of wind down time. What that includes is, let's say they need to go to bed by 10. They need to start winding down by 9, and what that means is no digital media from 9 o'clock on. And they might be able to do things such as coloring or listening to music, as long as it's not on their phone or doesn't involve a screen. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And then also, it's very important that teens learn how to have a couple other ways to calm themselves down and maybe get a routine in hand. So that might include having a cup of tea or a little bit of milk or whatever they think is calming for them to do. The second thing we're going to talk about is breathing. Now, I've talked about this in the newsletter, and I know it seems silly because, of course, teens have to breathe anyway, but it's the type of breathing that they're going to do that can calm them down. And one question that I got that I didn't make clear in the newsletter is, when do they use this type of breathing? Well, it's good to do whenever they start to feel uncomfortable. It might be on the way over to tryouts, but certainly once they get there, or whenever they feel a little bit uncomfortable. If they start feeling what I think of as, or what I call red emotions, so fear, anger, frustration, disappointment, anything like that, or if they start getting very worried about what other people are thinking of them, which I know is a big thing, especially for girls. So this type of breathing, again, it's called box breaths, and they can breathe in through their nose, and that's into their belly or into their diaphragm, hold it for 5, and then exhale, and then hold it for 5. So whenever they start to feel very nervous, then it's really good for them to try this breathing method, which it's a way of calming them down, getting them into what's called a zone state of mind, so they can really focus on what's important. The third thing that they should do is really set some intentions and also be aware of a couple affirmations. So intentions are things that they have 100% control over, that they really want to do and make sure they do well at this practice. I'm sorry, not at the practice, but the tryout. So, and also that helps keep them focused on what's important that they have control over, rather than worrying too much about everything else that's going on. One intention, let's say for volleyball, would be, every time before I serve, I'm going to bounce the ball 3 times, and I'm going to toss high and follow through. So that's an intention that they're going to set, that they're going to be sure to do, and it's something that they have control over. Affirmations are really important as well. These are things that teens either know that they have done in the past or know that they're capable of doing. So an affirmation might be, I am capable of getting a serve in, or I am capable of blocking shots on defense, something like that. I hope those things are making sense. Again, this is Sheryl, mental toughness coach, published author, speaker. If you're just joining, I do encourage you to write in with questions, and I'm glad to answer those. So just a couple more minutes here. What I'm going to go over now is something that is very important for teens that not a lot of teens will be thinking about. So this really could be an advantage for your teen going into tryouts. And it has to do with errors. And I know it's kind of a sore subject with teens. They don't really want to talk about errors, but it's very important that they know how to manage them, because it's not if they happen during tryouts, it's more of when they're going to happen during tryouts. So one thing that has to do with errors, it's very important for teens to remember, it's how they process errors. So when that happens, if they miss a serve or miss a shot or anything happens that's not so great, they need to think about how they're going to react. So rather than think about and dwell on that error and be upset with themselves, they need to take a quick breath and think, okay, what did I need to do in that moment? And then get back to the controllables, if that makes sense. It's extremely important that teens don't beat themselves up too much about errors. You need to understand that everyone's going to make them, and what's important is not that they're perfect during tryouts, but that they know that they have a couple of important things to focus on and that they recover from their errors and they do it quickly. So last thing, I wanted to let everyone know that I am here to help your teen and serve your teen any way I can. If anyone wants to reach out to me for a 15-minute consultation to see if there's any way I can help your teen, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. My website is in the subject line, and you can reach me that way. Also, if there's anyone watching who is not on my newsletter, I encourage you to go to my website as well and hop on there, because that is my weekly and latest content. So this wraps it up. I hope you found this helpful. It's going to get taped and it will be available to be viewed later if you want to come back to it. Thanks so much for taking part, and we'll see you next time.